So our student advisor, Madison Kelly, right new this year. We're glad to
Yes.
have you. Please,
Thank you very much.
if you like to wait just a few, we
Yeah,
can
no
pause
problem.
briefly. Oh, yes, please. Thank you.
Please, thank you, thank you.
Okay, Madison.
Yeah, so I am Madison Kelly. I am a senior at Fairport High School. I've been a Red Raider since the beginning. I've been very lucky. I went through Brooks Hill, and then I was through Martha Brown, Minerva, and now Fairport High School. So my role here today is just kind of to inform the board and everyone here of, from a student perspective, especially at the high school and being a senior, what it's been like these last 2 months being in school. So first off, obviously it's October, it's first quarter, so students are still getting in the routine of things. I was lucky enough to be in the leadership class, which was basically an advanced politics course, so we just came back from our trip. I was able to meet with the DEA headquarters. I got to go to FBI headquarters. I had meetings with 3 different staffers of congressmen and congresswomen. So it was a very interesting experience, and I know that coming back, people have been focusing on their presentations. Seniors especially have been focusing on applications for colleges. I know that that's been taking up a lot of time. But also the sophomores have been focusing on their transition, transferring from Minerva, which obviously is a different environment than Fairport High School. So the adjustment has been pretty good so far, from what I can tell. We just had our Make a Difference campaign, and that went pretty smoothly. The theme this year was Your Mind Matters, which I worked very closely with Mr. Monticelli on, and I am very proud to say that I believe the impact that it made was tremendous. And I heard from not only students, but parents as well reached out to me, and I'm sure Mr. Clark and Mr. Monticelli as well. And I'm very proud to be part of a district and to be able to stand here and say that I am a part of this impact, and that I can see that there are students that really do benefit from the focus on mental health and mental wellness. I also would like to talk about a little bit of Spirit Week. We had a bit of a controversial incident in the beginning of Spirit Week. The theme was Decades Day, and some kids were known to be kind of, I don't know the right word, but mostly, I guess, portraying some sort of racial negativities and stereotypes, and it wasn't well received, and students did make a student-led walkout. The impact of that walkout, I believe, was clear, and it was just kind of to get administration to notice. And I will say that although I was not able to be a part of the walkout, I did notice that there was an email sent out by the administrators of Fairport High School to kind of say about Halloween costumes that there should not be any sort of racial stereotypes depicted in those costumes, which I thought was a tremendous, kind of outreach. And I think it definitely displayed their notice of the walkout and the students' voices. I know that's a bit controversial, but I just wanted to point that out because it was a big deal in Fairport High School. And then also, we just started our campaign for social media, #ForTheRaiderGood, which is encouraging physical health and kind of getting out there. And it's a competition between classes, and it's a safe competition. So the classes are competing to win the Raider Cup for the month. And each month, the challenges differ. But like I said, this month is physical health. So the students are asked.
I will comment, the only pictures I've seen on social media have been of the teachers working out, none of the kids. So.
Yes, I know. We have different, this year it's new that they have the different, like Fairport class of 2020, class of 2021, class of 2022. So those officers are really trying to make people send stuff in so then they can at least post them on the broad accounts, but there's definitely more of a push for people to push on their personal accounts as well. But yes, I do like seeing the teachers working out and going on hikes and all that. And then also this week is Red Ribbon Week, which we've known very well. And the student council members decided to do last minute kind of theme days, which I think the students have received extremely well. So today was Pajama Day, tomorrow's Wacky Wednesday, Thursday's For the Raider Good, kind of their interpretation of what that hashtag means. And then Friday is Pink Out for breast cancer awareness. So I'm really looking forward to this week, and I'm really looking forward to speaking to all of you each month. And I really enjoy hearing from you all and hopefully working with you all in the future. So thank you very much for all you do.
Yeah. Madison, thank you. And thank you for not shying away even against the area, the walkout you talked about that was controversial. A walkout might not be a walkout if it wasn't a little controversial, but we were kept informed. I'm proud of what happened, and, you know, that's part of the education experience. I hope sometime we can figure out how much has been raised through the Make a Difference campaign, too, if that's ever available to. Last year was astounding, and thank you for your work in that area as well. So appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I've talked enough already. I'm going to forgo, I think, generally the President's report. I know, well, briefly then, I know everybody's been busy. The Monroe County School Boards Association committees are up and running. Thank you for attending those and bringing information back to us. I know there's many more to be had on top of our own internal committees and meetings, so we're well into the full swing of things. And Brett, then, your report?
My report will be an abbreviated report. I'm going to go to slide 9 as we move forward. Madison, I really appreciate your report. I think it hit on many important themes and big ideas. And, you know, we talked about the walkout, student protest, that passion and advocacy and how it was managed internally by the FHS staff and administrative team. I really appreciate their sensitivity and level of awareness and the dialogue. You talked about Spirit Weeks, you talked about Make a Difference campaigns, and that's our Board of Education. And that's what they enable. And, you know, I've been around in this business for, you know, I want to say over 25 years, and, you know, that's a gift that it's not seen or experienced in other districts. Your voice matters. Your ability to advocate and be the best version of yourselves, and this is you and your classmates, the Spirit Days, the homecoming activities, that's all part of the Board of Education's expectations too. So thank you for sharing that, and I echo what Mr. Forsgren said, that you didn't shy away from that, and I'm glad you didn't. And we're going to be talking more about cultural competency. You know, we're having a diversity council as a district. We're having a families of color group. We're going to be meeting with Fairport High School students over the next several months, and Minerva DeLand students, asking them to talk about their stories, and, you know, how do we get to understand each other? How do we build that empathy that is necessary not just for Fairport schools but well into the future, because the world is diverse, and it's the board expectation that we continue to have these conversations. Here's another board expectation. Co-curricular and extracurricular activities are alive and well in Fairport. It's October. They're not all fully slotted, or we don't have all of our enrollment in these activities, but they are an investment in our schools. More than 3,000 students will be participating in activities. That's pretty impressive. This is not a complete number, as some schools will not begin until later this month, so this number will be growing. And we're going to be doing a little feature on extracurricular activities next month to talk about why they're so important. Students participate in multiple activities, as Madison so adeptly stated, and it's basically based upon student interest. And I think that speaks, again, it's very intentional. Benefits, not only that it feels good, but there are research-based, best practice-based benefits of clubs, reducing behaviors, positive attitudes about school, more likely to succeed in school if you're connected to a club, completing school, important life lessons of leadership, teamwork, resilience, organization, problem solving. You just get to discover your talents and what makes you tick. So when you go on to the next phase of your journey, hopefully one of those clubs stimulated an interest. And again, the social aspects are well grounded in research. The connections are well grounded in research, as we'll see later when we talk about our budget goals in draft form. And the types of club: coding club, Lego robotics, student council, peer tutoring, bowling, ski clubs, environmental clubs, School of Rock culture clubs, intramurals, fishing. This is not a complete list. This is just a flavor of what our students have to experience in our schools. And it's an important part of our schools. It's the soul of our schools because it connects kids, it engages kids, it gives them voice, as Madison just shared in a way that she could only share better than I can. Types of clubs, electives. Not only do we have clubs, we have a robust electives offering. Again, very intentional, connecting kids to alternative experiences, giving them the opportunity to develop self, develop skills, develop voice. Family, consumer science, music, art, technology, English, business, social studies, math, science, health, world language, and of course our partnership with BOCES. Middle school, we have 617 students participating in family, consumer science, music, art, technology at any given point in time. Martha Brown, 726. Minerva DeLand has 33 class offerings of electives. Fairport High School has 132 offerings. Very intentional. Giving voice, giving students the opportunity to engage and get connected. Students come to school for their electives. Students excel and find their path because of the elective programming that we have here. Athletic opportunities. Interscholastic athletics is alive and well. We have 35 teams in Fairport. We have 780 students participating in our fall offerings, and that's only our fall, and that number will only continue to grow. As we celebrate our board, as we talk about their commitment and investment in our schools, this is underplayed, and as we move forward, we're going to continue to highlight it and speak to the benefits of how it engages and connects students into our community and with each other. I'm going to transition now really quickly to Mr. Stevens. Matt, our Assistant Superintendent of Business, over the past several months, people have been getting their tax bill, and they may have noticed their taxes have been a little bit higher. And there's an explanation from our perspective on how and why that's a new tax relief with the STAR program, how that's impacting your tax bill with a new change in how it's being managed by New York State. Mr. Stevens, and then I will sit down and we'll move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Again, like Mr. Provenzano said, we just talk a little bit about the STAR program. So a big important piece to note about this, it's a state program. So this is not a school district run program. It's New York State's STAR program that provides for exemptions. And if we remember a couple of years ago, as we talked during the budget process, when the budget proposals came through, it was changed to a STAR credit for homeowners buying new homes. During this past budget year, the New York State passed a law that the program would be changed. So I think now folks are starting to see that on their tax bills. And I'm not going to read through every piece. I would recommend that we place the website up here that, those folks that receive the STAR exemption, maybe look at their tax bill and this year didn't have the exemption on there anymore for the basic STAR, that take a look at some of the requirements. According to the state, some homeowners should have received letters if they were over any income thresholds. So you can see here the exemption recipients, if they're receiving the basic STAR exemption, income be between $250,000 and $500,000, it's changing. So what that means is now that those homeowners would receive a check from the state, but there's an application process. So it's important, when that mail comes in for the state, to take a look at that and follow the proper processes for applying for the STAR credit, which then is in form of a check. If it's $250,000 or less, the exemption remains. But if you look at the law, it becomes frozen. So the amount will not grow. So that's another piece to consider, is that if individuals are looking for growth, which is capped at 2% per the state, they can look at the eligibility and applying for the credit rather than the exemption. So I think that's just a good piece to look at as well. Here's a chart, directly from the Office of Real Property Services for New York State. It kind of talks about the different exemption limits that I just reviewed there as well. What this impact means is that the approximately $670 basic STAR exemption that could have been there last year could no longer be there this year. I can state, looking at the tax rate increase for the district, it was a 2.68% tax increase, taking away the basic STAR exemption in 2019-20 because of the state's requirements in terms of income thresholds. It could appear that the tax rate for the school increased greater. However, it's not true. It's because of the basic STAR exemption and the income thresholds that the state now has in place. So the school tax rate still only increased 2.68%. If you remember, the levy that it increased for 1920 was 3.28. So the rate itself is actually less than the overall levy increase. That could be for a myriad of reasons, and basically growth in assessed value and how the amount is dispersed across the taxpayers in the district. Other reasons why any payment in tax bill could have gone up could also be assessment value. So looking at individual assessments to see if the town did reassess your particular home. So it's kind of looking at the different factors that
So
would
the
impact.
moral to the story is, if your tax bill is higher and it appears to be higher than usual, this may be the culprit. It's something that, we talked about last year through the budget season, but now it's being applied. People are saying that, oh, my word, my taxes have gone up, considerably. How does that happen? And it might be this STAR program
Yeah.
management.
Yep, very likely that's the basic STAR exemption that was in place in 1819, that because of the thresholds for the state income levels would be gone in 1920. So, and then another piece, we asterisked, the state has asterisked a couple of different things here for the eligibility factor, residency, and income. And if you take here, this is how the state, views the income levels here. So hopefully that just provides a little bit of background. And
So
this is the state's.
what we're going to do is we're going to provide, I'm going to work with Christina Gerslin, our media specialist, to come up with a way to, direct people to this information.
Yeah, I think the important part is to know this is partial information from the state's website. I think it's important truly to refer individuals to New York State's website, because it's going to have far more detail and information for the regs, like that lower, yes, you got it.
Even if we had our,
Yes.
just so our residents can go and link right to the state.
Through the states.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Another thing to remember too is when it comes to taxes, both village, town, county, school district, that we have some individuals in our town that have a low income. I was helping out a neighbor today, and her tax bill was cut in half because of her income. Well, that half that she's not paying still has to be paid. So that gets spread around more. And when it comes to your tax bill, it's not an easy thing to see. I mean, there's a lot involved.
Great. Thank you. Is that everything?
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Yes, but the next part is yours as well, Mr. Stevens, right? The treasurer investment update. Yes, right, we had mentioned that.
Okay, thank you and good evening. Tonight, we have the treasurer's report for the month of August 2019. The beginning balance for August was $38.6 million. Receipts in the month equivalent to $3 million, primarily related to sales tax and New York State aid. That'd be prior year aid coming in this year. And total disbursements of the month of $3.7 million, for an ending general fund cash balance of $37.9 million. Compared to last year, it's approximately, it's a higher based on our year-end, reserves and so forth. So trending-wise, though, in a similar fashion, of the $37.9 million, there's approximately $26.4 million invested in treasury bills, insured cash sweep account, and CDs, which is about 70% of the total general fund cash balance. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to just do this quick. Not wanting, we have multiple people in waiting for presentations and don't want anybody to think they might be the ugly stepchild or whatnot, but our auditors typically, though, are hopping from one business meeting to another, or this time of year at least, where all the school districts need to get their audit reports done and taken care of and presented. Ours is here, so I'd like to, if we can, quickly take care of the consent calendar, since there's no discussion around that, and then ask our auditor to come up. So consent calendar, you see all the different items in there: bid recommendations, the treasurer's report, approval of various minutes from committees and past meetings. Motion to approve the consent calendar. Tim first, second Joyce. All in favor? 7, anybody, any opposed? 7-0. So if you're okay, just rearrange the agenda a little bit and then invite our auditor Wagger up. Thank you. Light should be blue, yep.
Got it. Good evening. How are you? I'd like to spend a few minutes and just do a brief overview of the audit process. If you have questions as I go along, please stop me. I'll see if I can answer them. If I can't answer them, I will get back to you with an answer. So let's just go as far as, first of all, the audit process continued to go very well. Okay, your procedures, your controls, your processes to record your information, record your transactions continues to be very good. And that is really reflected in our letter of recommendations that are very minimal in nature. There's no significant findings from our audit report. We look at your controls and your checks and balances, and if we find something that's weak, that's something that we suggest that you improve. So the letter, the recommendation letter is just very minor, a couple of best practice comments, and that's it. So that went very well. We had no major adjustments. If we come in and we find that we have to make a large adjustment to change an account because there was some type of accounting error, we need to report that to you if it's a large adjustment. We did not have any large adjustments, which again reflects on your ongoing accounting systems. They're working. And there isn't any significant finding, no significant adjustments which we had to make. Now, overall financially, I'm sure you're aware you continue to be in excellent shape. You have an excellent balance sheet. Your equities actually increased about $5 million this year. That money has been spread around to your different reserves in accordance with your long-term plan for the district, and they're being managed very well. That certainly has a big influence on your financial stability and going forward. If in fact something financially in the economy, maybe we have a difficult year, if your health insurance goes up, if your pension plans all of a sudden start to spike again, you have enough resources to deal with those things if they happen. So that puts yourself in really good shape financially. So overall financially you're in good shape and your procedures are in good shape. The recommendations are minor, and in fact one recommendation, there's a corrective action plan already embedded in our letter, which gets forwarded to New York State. And with that said, is there any questions?
Thanks for your input.
You're welcome.
I assume you work with many districts, some of which have long-term or large capital projects like we're undergoing right now as well.
Okay.
So the rules of the game change a little bit with planning for large projects like that with the reserves and stuff. So I think we're confident with what we're doing. However, I would just ask if there's something that you see or recognize a best practice maybe in a different district that would be strategically advantage for us to be aware of. I'd appreciate you calling that out.
Well, let me just comment on this, that I've seen some of your projects in the past, and I've seen how you structured them, and you used some local funding from reserve funds to help pay primarily the local share, and I believe that concept continues. Okay, the state's not going to reimburse you 100% for any project, so there will be a small amount that they don't reimburse you as far as state aid. And the process that you and most districts try to do is put money aside, basically set up a savings account to help offset the cost of the project itself as the bonds are paid off. And I know you're continuing to do that, so I don't think there's any newer strategy than that. But without that strategy, if you borrow $20 million and you have to pay that off without any savings that you put against it, then the cost of paying off the bonds, if they're 70% refunded by the state, 30% will hit the tax levy every year until they're paid off. So unless you have savings to apply for the local share of a project, then it will definitely affect the tax levy. Okay? Hopefully that helps. Okay? Anything else? Okay? Okay.
Thank you.
You're
And-
welcome.
To our internal team, thank you, because we don't want to hear too much about other findings, right, at this meeting, so. But the Audit and Finance Committee did get this a couple weeks ago. We reviewed it with Ray and his team. Thank you so much. For those who might not be able to sleep at tonight, I like these, but not everybody does, but if you need it, here you go, okay. We will adopt them later on in later part of the agenda. Thank you for letting that rearranging. Back to personnel actions. We have 4A, instructional personnel actions. I know we're short on our team members tonight, if there's questions, but backup material was provided for everything under instructional. Need a motion to approve. Judy first, Tim second. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? 7-0, looks like. Athletic, personnel actions, athletic specific. Motion to approve. Tim, second. Damon? Any questions or comments? All in favor? Okay, no opposed, but one abstention, so 6-0 and one abstention. Thank you. Okay,
Oops, I think I'm slow, but I just wanted to acknowledge the formation of a new unified team.
Yes, thank
which
you
is
for remembering that.
wonderful.
Yes.
Just
Bowling.
thought Bowling,
Yep.
which is awesome.
Thank you for making note of that, I forgot, but
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know, it's always, we've always received such good reports around the other unified teams, the basketball team is, it's just, so yeah. Good move, thank you. Non-instructional and civil service personnel items. Motion to approve. Damon first. Second, Kevin. Questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? 7-0? I was interpreting here. And then we have a memorandum of agreement, pilot edition of 2 mental health department lead teachers. We have that memorandum to look at, I hope. Let's motion to approve. Marty, a second.
Second.
Tim, questions or comments about this MOA?
Very well needed, and I'm glad to see this in. It's, our mental health staff really needs the extra opportunity to really work together and collaborate.
Thank you.
Keeps us moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I will say that, during our tour at Northside last week, I went into the health class, and they were doing mindfulness there, and it was really awesome to see, and the impact on those kids. I don't know if they were 3rd or 4th grade, but I mean, they were all centered around the mindfulness exercise. It was excellent, but it's programs like that that can be really driven pervasively by these health teachers, these lead teachers. So I think that, building that culture of mindfulness and coping mechanisms is going to be really helpful for this.
Dr. Kenneth Ginsberg was with us last Tuesday with staff and with the mental health professionals and with parents, and he said resoundingly, given the amount of students that we have, our mental health staff that we have, he hasn't seen it to the level and the commitment that we have. And so he applauded that, and this is a national expert who sees and interacts with professionals, parents, community members, and he just applauded the commitment. So thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? 7-0. Okay, we've had our financial audit. We'll go to the draft budget goals for the 2021 school year.
Really proud of this effort and commitment by the Board of Education to make sure that these goals are talked about early and often. This is a draft form of our budget goals for the 2020-21 goals. Those should be saying up there, I don't know. I apologize for that. But yeah, we are going to be allocating financial and human resources to support instructionally and developmentally appropriate class sizes and programming. And again, that's the board's commitment to meeting students where they are, making sure that we're developmentally appropriately interacting with students no matter where they are along the educational continuum. The class sizes and the mental health components that we continually experience and see, they're germane to how students perform and feel in school. Mental health of students and other unique learning needs, exploring alternative programming at the middle school, continuing our commitment with alternative programming in our 10-12 building here at FHS is also a priority. A variety of ways to connect students to our schools and engage them in our programming. Here again, just tweaking it to the importance of the relevance of connections. The board knows that connections matter, and putting it in our goals, making sure that we're continually communicating our goals, because the budget is a reflection of who we are. It's a reflection of our soul. It's a reflection of our spirit. It tells a story, and I think if you take a look at these particular pieces, along with the curriculum management related to our educational programming priorities, it speaks to that story. And the board wanted to continue to build upon that. We talked about this at length at the workshop. So it's similar to last year's, but it's tweaked in certain circumstances, allocating up to 1% of our annual budget for maintenance of our facilities and building infrastructure, updating facilities to support modern learning environments. These goals have come about directly from our District Advisory Council. Again, building upon the community's expectations, where over 3,000 community members interacted with us through surveys, through focus groups. Having these in writing here is a reflection of that document and the board's commitment to our strategic initiatives. People expect us to take care of our facilities. People expect us to protect our investments and to put it in the budget process in a transparent way. The board is already talking about it. Right now, there's a facilities planning team that is meeting, and they're vetting through the building condition survey to showcase what will be a part of this if the board continues to adopt these budget goals. Cost containment is a priority, especially in the era that we're living in. We need to make sure that we're being responsive and responsible to the taxpayer as a whole. We will be talking about how we are containing costs through our budget process, whether it's through BOCE services or finding ways to do things in more efficient manner. And of course, review and report the use of all reserves to support district sustainability. Mr. Wagger started talking a little bit about that with Damon Buffin's question about the importance of reserves. The board understands and realizes that reserves are an important part of our fiscal outlook and future. So we'll be talking about reserves throughout the budget process. So in a nutshell, this captured our work at the workshop, and we hope next month to confirm them at this meeting.
So Brett, just to clarify a couple of things. So we've been talking about, boy, who's making all the noise out there? I'm kidding. So just to clarify a couple of things. So we've talked a lot earlier tonight, and we've talked about the capital project we have, and understanding the budget, the operational budget, 99% of it is focused on kids and program.
Right here.
And mental health.
Right there.
Right?
Yep.
So it's separate. So the capital project is not impacting the budget. This 1% of the annual budget, we talked about that versus having a budget surplus at the end of the year and then doing projects, sort of ad hoc projects as needed. We wanted to do that in a more planful way. So we wanted to just specify we're going to take 1% of the budget and allocate it towards smaller projects, but are needed toward modernization or safety or just critical things that are not part of the capital
That was
projects.
something that we heard loud and clear throughout
Right.
our district advisory council.
Yep.
That people wanted to hear what we were doing, whether it's asphalt, whether it's large group instruction areas, whether it's library renovations. Those are things that we could do.
The chairs in this room.
The chairs in this room, these chairs that you're sitting in,
Yep.
is a part of that commitment. Thank you
Yep.
very much.
Yep.
Right, the most obvious.
Right.
And that 1%
They were
is
broken.
above and beyond the regular budgetary lines that go for maintenance of all our buildings. So this is, we already have in our budget our daily maintenance, our daily cleaning and light bulbs and all that. This is above and beyond that.
Right, and the large capital projects that we're talking about they have nothing to do with the operational budget of our district. They're two separate issues.
Correct.
So, okay.
The second bullet point you have here, Brett, the mental health, it has been proven in the past 4 or 5 years that the more we invest in mental health of our students and our community members, that only increases for all of us the safety of all of the people involved. So when you have individuals who have very good mental health, our general safety is improved and better in all aspects of the word safety.
And the board's very aware of that throughout our programming. There's intentional dollars spent, whether it's clubs, whether it's mental health professionals, whether it's health teachers. These are expectations. Again, it speaks to the story. The budget is a reflection of our story, and these bullet points reflect that.
And our cooperation with the strong mental health group that we deal with as well. I mean, that just brings it out to the families.
Correct. Thank you. We're looking to confirm this next month. I'm sure we'll be talking about it at the workshop, and then finalizing it here. And again, I think the school community benefits from having these done and completed in an early fashion. So thank you, and I apologize for rushing through it. I'm just trying to be sensitive to everybody's needs here.
So just looking at our, though, future workshops and business meeting, right? Any tweaks that you see, besides to the title of the slide? Let's get those, in so we can think about them, or not think about them, but discuss them and make those tweaks for adoption. I believe the initial budget packages, you said, go out November 6th, and
Yep.
so.
I saw you mess with my presentation when I was over here, Peter. Yes. Messing with my title.
You're blaming that on me now? Okay. Right, so the capital improvement project that's been on many people's minds. Yes, you just should take your computer with you. It is available through board docs though, Tim, if you want it.
Talk tonight about our Fairport Forward Foundations for the Future master planning for this particular capital improvement project. Our goal is to discuss the scope of the work and the phasing along with the estimated tax impact this evening. It's important to recognize that these initiatives or this work just didn't happen. It came through a year-long process. Then after that, it became a study in what is needed in relative to educational programming, facilities planning, and fiscal sustainability. So this project is a reflection of over 3,000 community members having a voice in our district advisory council and planning process. Again, there were surveys and focus groups where we actually interacted with data, and this is how we realized this particular plan. Throughout this process, our goal is to maximize state building aid through project phasing. It all just can't happen at once. It needs to be done in a thoughtful, methodical way, and as we go through this process or this this presentation, you'll see how that's coming to fruition. Also, we are minimizing and trying to manage the impact on teaching and learning. There's going to be impacts, and we will try to minimize those impacts through careful planning, through listening to our neighbors, so we can continue to try to serve everyone's needs. But there will be impacts, and we'll do our best to minimize those as we move through. You could see that there's a timeline here. We've been talking about this for several months, into almost over a year. And the timeline, there are specific activities that have occurred, and we're finalizing our seeker determination. We are hoping to have a project resolution this evening if the board chooses to move forward with the project resolution to formalize this capital. A comfortable learning environment. We've talked to kitchen staff. We've talked to office staff. We will continue to have these user group meetings because I think Peter Forsgren said it. These are conceptual in nature. Right? As we move along in this process, the drawings will become real. These are just ideas, and Tim Sliz also echoed that these are going to change and evolve based upon the feedback that we get. Mr. Stevens is going to talk about the timeline of the project.
All right, thank you, Mr. Provenzano. So the timeline of any capital project, as we've talked about before, can take several years. So the first step is to adopt the project first through the whole development process, as Brett mentioned earlier. Tonight we're at the project resolution stage, and then as you look forward, you can see some of the important dates as it relates to schematic design. It takes approximately 3 months. Design development, 2 months. Some of the construction documents to prepare to submit to the State Education Department. Once it's submitted to SED, which you can see there is projected at September of 20. It's allotted approximately 4 months for the facilities planning group at the State Education Department to review the plans and specs and provide any feedback there. And then projected bid date out to 2021. And then you can see the construction, which is the light blue area with some dark blue areas, primarily in the summers, in terms of the length of construction for the project. So construction projected to begin in approximately the spring/summer of 2021 and to go all the way through the fall of 2023 for the entire project. So that just gives an idea of the length of time, for the project timeline itself in terms of when construction can begin, which is out approximately, a couple of years, year and a half to the beginning of that, then to the end, take a few years. So, let Brett go to the next piece.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you take a look at the scope of the project, science and technology and flexible learning environments, paralleling what we learned through our district advisory council, that these were priorities. We need to have environments that are flexible. We have classrooms that were built in the 1970s, even earlier than that are impacted. These are fixed spaces. We need to make sure that we give students the environment to have ideas and collaborative spaces where they can problem solve and work in environments that they're going to be working with in the future. Physical education and site improvements. I know everyone talks about athletic fields, but to me, the work that needs to be done is about the physical education components of our programming with the turf fields that would be out there. That means more students can access classroom space outside. Right now, if you go into those places, they're flooded. The water, saturates the area and makes that not able to happen for our PE sites. There will also be a proposed bus loop at Jefferson Ave School, which we'll be talking about in a little bit as well. Safety and security in all of our buildings, making sure that we're compliant with codes, but also our security entrances. There'll be a consistent way that we'll be entering in all of our buildings with a buzzing system on the outside and inside to make sure that we can get a good look at who's coming to our schools, to make sure our students are safe. This is a industry standard. This was vetted by our safety committees that were working on this last year through our safety audit and supported through our partners in the Fairport Village Police and Monroe County Sheriffs. We're looking closely at our infrastructure, our boilers. Definitely need to be looked at through this project, and we'll be talking about how the scope of the project impacts our building condition survey, so we are protecting our investments. So that's the scope of the project. Also, the board members have expressed that we have an eye on conservation. And, this project does have conservation, underlining themes of conservation, from energy, smart lighting, and renovated classrooms. We have a number of classrooms that are going to be renovated. We're going to be able to update them with the latest lighting. Boiler replacements, 82% efficient right now. We will be going to 95% efficient units. There'll be some natural efficiencies, based upon their use, just by getting new boilers. Bathroom upgrades with high-efficiency plumbing fixtures, curtain wall upgrades to make sure that our outside of our buildings are thermal resistance, and that helps with energy consumption. And water coolers where appropriate with bottle fillers. So these are just ways that we are going to naturally be energy efficient in this first phase. I know as we go into future phases, the board will be looking at other avenues that might be a little bit more intricate when it comes to energy conservation, but we're definitely making this a highlight of the project because we'll reap some efficiencies, some natural efficiencies. If you take a look at our elementary schools, Brooks Hill has a new boiler. We invested in a new boiler, I think, 5 years ago. Otherwise, Dudley, Northside, Jefferson Avenue, we are proposing a new boiler. Security or secured vestibules will be a part of this project in all of these schools. This will enhance the safety and the interactions between staff and visitors. There's also going to be safety enhancements, including emergency lights, strobes, heat, smoke detectors, and ventilation in some cases to meet building code. So this is the scope of the project for our elementary schools. It definitely impacts our building condition surveys. It supports safety and security, and making sure that we're updating and protecting our investment at those elementary schools. Jefferson Avenue, here's a picture of the site improvement that we're recommending for Jefferson Avenue. You can see that the bus loop is in the confines of the property. Now, it's a pure safety and security issue when it comes to bus loops and student drop-offs. If you take a look at Brooks Hill, Northside Dudley, we recently, through recent projects, have separated those two entities. Best practice is separating the two entities. Right now, buses, students, cars, and staff are all interacting at one time. We need to do better. It's purely about safety and security. We feel like we have a plan. We're going to continue to again, this is a concept. We're going to meet with our neighbors in the area at Jefferson Avenue to receive their feedback and again, monitor and adjust. At Joanna Perrin, we have technology classrooms that have never been renovated. I think the building was built in 1954, and these are the same classrooms. And
One of them was that was done in 1970s.
this one right here was done in 1970s. Yep. Right. So nonetheless, these rooms need work. If you go in these classrooms, which I'm sure we'll be doing a lot of visuals over the next several weeks, they tell a story. And we're going to be renovating those rooms and again meeting with those users to create spaces that are flexible, that promote communication and collaboration and problem solving, all skills that students need well into the future. We're also going to be looking at some toilet room renovations, 1 to 2 depending on the scope of the project, and of course security enhancements through a secured vestibule. We'll also be replacing our boilers at Johanna Perrin as well. Martha Brown. There'll be some science classrooms that are in dire need of renovations. Again, science classrooms where there are lab, students are interacting, they're constantly up, moving around. You need flexible spaces. They're working in fixed spaces. We hope to create environments that allow for these natural interactions to occur that reinforce curriculum. There'll be the secured vestibules and in addition to boiler replacements at Martha Brown. And in all these buildings, we'll be hitting ventilation in occupied spaces, emergency lights, heat and smoke detectors, and other safety enhancements to meet building code requirements. Minerva DeLand, it's important that we protect our investments. We continue we'll be continuing to own Minerva DeLand. That's our plan. Protecting that building as students transition to the high school. We look to have agencies or potential partnerships where this building can be used as a viable source of education, but also as possible revenue streams for the district. We'll have an opportunity to receive full aid on this building because our students are still in the school, so it's a wise investment to protect the investment. We're also going to replace the boiler plant and make the infrastructural improvements. Fairport High School. We're focused in on the renovated areas. This is the high school cafeteria. We're looking at creating a space that's open, that allows us to do some different things in it rather than just eat lunch. We envision opportunities for students and staff to interact here, students to use it, for after-school clubs or activities, or on the weekends. This gymnasium, upgrades are needed to the gymnasium and our team rooms as well. Just above the cafeteria, there are science classrooms. We're working with the users, our science teachers, to get their feedback on how they envision their classrooms of the future, trying to make sure that we meet their needs in the classroom, but also in the professional spaces. We've had multiple conversations. We'll be continuing conversations with these conceptual drawings that we're seeing. These are ideas that we're forming. But again, modernizing the learning environment and maintaining our infrastructure. This building was built in the 1970s. These are still the same classrooms. If you go into these classrooms today, you see our students in these fixed environments, not free-flowing, not able to collaborate. We feel like we could do better, especially when we're reinforcing the critical science standards and expectations for supporting our students and the curriculum. Here's just a conceptual drawing. This could change multiple different times, but it's just to give an idea of what that space is going to look like. The new capacity is going to be allowing 563 students. Right now, with all three cafeterias, it's 490. So by opening up that space, giving students the opportunity to experience spaces that they're going to be experiencing when they go on to their next part of their journeys, whether it's in the workplace or at a 4-year or 2-year institution. This is the standard. We are working with our kitchen staff to arrange the kitchen and the eating stations, so we'll be developing this more specifically as we move along. But again, the goal is to have these distinct zones for varied activities and users. You'll see some quiet spaces for students. You'll see spaces for students and staff, because sometimes students and staff, there's extra help, and our students need to access teachers. So we're trying to create that space within this one environment. Again, here's just an idea of workroom. Workrooms are very important for our professionals. It's an opportunity for them to collaborate, talk about best practices. It's also an opportunity for them to meet with students on occasion and have some collegial time. They need that space, and it's a priority for us to look carefully, scrutinize, get their feedback, and make sure that we're being responsive. We've had multiple meetings with those who are impacted. And right now, those who are impacted are the science teachers, and I believe, again, we will have more meetings as we finalize the scope and these concepts become actual renderings. Physical education and athletics is a part of the high school site improvement. This area right here will be an extra teaching station. This area will also be an extra area where you'll have softball and baseball being able to play at the same time. We have, many students who use this. All of our students will be able to use this that go through Fairport High School. So that's 1,700 students will be impacted by this. We take a look at all of our students who go through our schools. They're going to be able to use this for physical education classes, both fields. Right now, the fields are not consistent. If it rains, you're not going to be able to get out there, and it does rain in Rochester. But with the turf fields, it will increase access, not only for physical education, but also for our athletic or interscholastic sports and community usage as well.
Brett, just for clarity, how many home games were we able to play in our field this year?
None.
How many PE classes were able to go on?
I don't have that information, but I know that if it's rainy, wet, and muddy, that it impacts that ability. They're not usable. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, when you're dealing with divots and flooding, it changes the landscape of that. But the turf fields will hopefully increase access, meet the needs of the students, the teachers, and the community. Here's another rendering of it. Again, conceptually speaking, we're going to look at the best way to lay that out, and the aesthetics will be honed in as we get closer and work through this project. That's why the feedback is crucial, as Tim Sliz was saying earlier.
Okay, thank you. So, in terms of the overall project, Mr. Provenzano reviewed all the different pieces, and here's a breakdown of the overall conceptual budget for the project. So, a not to exceed amount of $56.75 million. As you look down, you can see what that's made up of: the construction areas in all the buildings, and then in any capital project, school districts have to budget for incidentals, construction contingencies, and all those pieces. So you can see again, $56.75 million overall project referendum budget. How's that paid for? So as Mr. Wagger was mentioning earlier, the district has a building aid ratio that's assigned by the state. Ours is 77.9% currently. So of that, basically, right, the other percentages funded on the local share. So with this project, the district looked at some of the capital reserve balances that we have and looked to apply $7 million of the capital reserve to offset that share. So what's that mean? It means basically that at the end of the day, the district ends up borrowing over the 15-year time span of funding the project, $49.75 million. So it decreases the borrowing amount for the district, lowers interest and so forth on those pieces. So what's that mean overall on a taxpayer basis? The district has been looking at comparing these values on a $200,000 home and do it through the budget process as well as capital work. So in looking at debt retirement, so again, it's part of the pieces of looking at the financial outlook, looking at our current debt on existing projects or on completed projects, our existing debt, looking at the next time frame that we have some debt falling off the books with the building aid, and that's in 2022-23. So the net impact after the debt falling off is approximately $45 increase on a $200,000 home. You notice we talked about earlier the project timeline. The construction process takes place over several years. The debt actually, doesn't hit in 2020-21. It's out a couple years as well for the long-term debt as the project is closed out in the future. So it's 2022-23 in which that impact would take place. So that's the financial piece, and I think we had one more piece. Just to bring up Lucia Woo from Labella prior to the next item on the agenda, just to kind of go over the seeker process as a whole. So, Lucia?
Good evening. My name is Lucia, and I am an environmental planner with Labella Associates, the district's architect. On a daily basis, I work with architects and engineers on identifying and evaluating environmental impacts from infrastructure projects, including school district capital improvement projects. And I was responsible for scrutinizing the potential environmental impacts for the Fairport 2019 CIP. So as many of us here in this room know, in New York State, we consider environmental factors in the early stages of our decision making under the regulatory framework called SEEKR, or that's an acronym for State Environmental Quality Review. And just to give you a rundown of what was the process that we took in order to undertake this seeker review for 2019 CIP, as well as I'm going to give you the highlights of the findings for the project. So the process involved identifying the project as a type 1 action, which is just regulatory jargon for, hey, this project could potentially have large environmental impacts due to the exceedance of a regulatory threshold defined. I apologize, that's my phone. Due to exceeding one of the thresholds, which is 10 acres of physical alteration of the land. So this classification as a type 1 action requires a coordinated review among potentially involved and interested agencies. Now, under seeker, an involved agency is defined as a governmental entity that has an approval or funding authority for the project. So for this project, we identified the State Education Department and potentially Dormitory Authority of State of New York, or DESNY for short, as well as the Department of Environmental Conservation. And we also distributed some of the initial seeker paperwork to the State Historic Preservation Office, as well as the town of Parenton and the village of Fairport for their information. So once we mailed out the initial seeker paperwork identifying the scope of work, as well as some of the environmental resources that could be impacted, we set a 30-day period during which we invited any of the involved and interested agencies to provide the school board with any comments, as well as any objection to the board acting as the lead agency conducting this environmental review. We received no objection at the end of the 30-day period, and we received also explicit consent from the State Education Department, the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, or DASNY, as I know it, as well as the village of Fairport. Now, Labella, or me, in close consultation with the district's seeker attorney, prepared the seeker paperwork, or otherwise known as environmental assessment form, which you guys might have in front of you, including we also drafted the negative declaration resolution. These are our professional recommendations to inform you for the decision that you need to make in order to approve the project. Just really quickly, we found that this project will have no potentially moderate or large significant adverse impact on the environment. We did identify potentially small impacts that could be made on land, surface water, plants and animals, historic and archaeological resources, transportation, noise, odor, and light, as well as human health. But like I said before, we found no potentially moderate or large environmental impact that could negatively affect the environment. Some of the notable findings that we did conclude were that we need to focus mostly on the site work, which could affect the environmental resources that could be present on or near the school campuses that are going to be affected by 2019 CIP. One of which is, of course, we detected that there may be a stream on the Jefferson Avenue Elementary School, which could be disturbed. But before any construction work is done, we will make sure that the professionals go out there to survey and delineate any potential water body that could be present in the construction area. And if there is indeed a water body that could be disturbed, what we will do is, in close coordination with Department of Environmental Conservation, that this stream be redirected and be. There is a stream. Right, and we will make sure that there will be the exact route of that stream will be delineated, and we'll make sure that the DEC will be provided. All of their guidance will be incorporated into the final design. The second notable finding is that the reconfiguration of the playing fields at the Fairport High School will introduce new impervious surface, but we will make sure that upon final engineering design, there will be engineering measures and mitigation in place to handle any stormwater runoff. And we also decided that because the reconfiguration will be done within the existing footprint of the playing fields, there won't be any significant adverse impact on the environment. And I'll be happy to take any questions at this point.
Specifically, I see you mentioned, because the bioretention pond, what's a dry swell?
So dry swell is, I think of it as a ditch that doesn't contain water at all times. So it most likely will be dry, but temporarily it'll be wet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Runoff, stormwater runoff.
I do want to just point out that as we progress through this process, we'll be having workshops where we talk about the light impacts of water drainage and diverting of streams. We'll be talking about that. Those are public workshops. Anybody can attend, and we'll be having public forums as well, so we'll be able to answer those questions.
May I share this?
Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you, Lucy, I appreciate it. October 28th, we'll be visiting Jefferson Avenue School. We'll have our architects there as well to address any specific questions that you have that we'll be able to address in that forum, or we're not able to address in this forum right here. So that will be 6:30 on Monday the 28th. There will be a notice. If you haven't already received it, it should be coming tomorrow as well. So please, October 28th at 6:30 at Jefferson Avenue. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Like I said previously, our professional recommendations are presented for your review and consideration for action. And let me know if you have any additional questions. I'll be just sitting right over there. But thanks for your time and attention this late in the evening.
Thank you. Thank you for staying this late in the
being
evening.
here. Yes.
Are there any other questions at this point?
No, I guess I feel the emphasize, because I think there's always a little misunderstanding with seeker, even amongst me as a board member, in terms of all these years and this number of seekers that we've done, that it is an interagency, I don't know if that's the best word, process. It's not a community individual household
We all learned
process. It
that,
is
correct.
interagencies. So there's misunderstanding and people thinking that individual households have a part in that process. At this stage, that is not the case. A seeker is not that. It is interagency that were mentioned by our representative.
Well, some of the agencies, though, do represent the community
Oh,
at
for
large.
sure, right? The
village, the
environmental
town,
group,
yep.
right, DEC
DEC,
and others, so.
Village, the town.
But the process was for them to make, those agencies to make comments
Correct.
directly, not for individual household members to make comments during that time. And that's a New York State required process. And this document is very long, right? What, how many did you?
60 some odd.
Yes, right, so that's where I learned the word.
Are there
dry
any
swell.
particular questions regarding the presentation at this time? I know we spent several months.
Comfortable with the findings. Yes, I'm comfortable with the findings.
Thank you.
Right, so that moved us, if you were in the agenda following along, we kind of bridged from 5C into 6A, right, with that explanation, but that leads us to 6B in terms of resolution to adopt proposition resolution calling for a special vote on December 10th. So that's what we're starting to gear up for, right, is to move along in our, what's that?
We have to do A.
Oh, A, right, we had the presentation, but we didn't adopt it. I apologize, sorry. A first. Sorry, Ariel, give you a heart attack. Adopt the resolution for a proposed capital project pursuant to New York State Seeker Review Act, right? So you got a motion to approve by Kevin Glover, second, Marty Cardona. Any other questions or comments about the seeker? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 7-0. And then the proposed resolution for a special vote on December 10th for this capital project. A motion to approve?
So moved.
By Tim Sliz, second by Joyce. Any comments or questions?
Just Ariel, I know that we had talked about the nuances of a December vote, and I saw that you had a full staff of people that would be supporting.
Like 4 or 5 people, but some people offered to take on the double shift.
Okay, so otherwise, logistically, you were able to work it out? Okay, great, thank you for the hard work.
And with a smile on your face, right? Okay.
It's not December yet, though.
All right.
Well, it's early, hopefully enough to be done
Okay.
for the rest of the holidays. Comments, questions? We already did the motion, right? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? No, 7-0. So appointment of vote personnel, this is what Mr. Buffin was just talking about, so officially appoint those individuals. Joyce had made the motion, second. Judy, any comments or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? 7-0. Claims auditor reports, these, motion to approve the 4 claims auditor reports, all of them over the summer and into September.
So moved.
Tim first, second. Judy, second. Just a quick comment, then these have been reviewed by the Audit Finance Committee. All very standard findings, nothing out of the ordinary. So again, thank you. Good work by the Finance Office. So other questions or comments about all those claims audit reports? Abandoning ship fast. Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? 7-0. The budget calendar. We talked about the goals, but here's a proposed calendar, generally standard, but a few dates in there, kind of. Did we get dates for sure? Sorry, I should have looked at that. We had talked about leaving some open opportunities. Yeah, open opportunities for community. Just general time periods. But motion to approve the calendar. Marty, second. Joyce, any questions about the calendar? All in favor? Any opposed? No. 7-0. And I moved off the agenda. Whoops. Financial audit. So we had that presented by Mr. Wager. Any motion to approve or accept? I guess in this case, Joyce. I'll second that. And any other questions or all in favor? Any opposed? 7-0. Internal audit risk assessment. Motion the board accepts this internal control risk assessment. Motion to accept. Marty, second. Tim. Any questions? We haven't talked about this, but it was reviewed as well by the Audit Finance Committee. No real findings there as well. And out of that came that we were going to look at our cyber, what was, right, cybersecurity for our next internal risk assessment specifically. Okay, so all in favor? Any opposed? 7-0.
How, just on
Go
the
ahead.
cybersecurity risk assessment, what's the process of, who are we going to have do that assessment?
So initially, EFPR will develop the process, they'll look at it, they've looked at other districts, and then out of that could come a larger, full cyber, the internal audit really looks at the potential exposures
Okay.
as a whole.
Okay.
So they'll look at our technology, work with our technology team, look at the different
Okay.
programs, software platforms, all those things that we
Right.
have.
So who does that, though?
Uh,
EFPR, you said?
EFPR, yep.
Who's that?
That's our internal auditor. So each year, there has to be a single control audit.
Okay.
Item selected.
So EFPR provides somebody that has cybersecurity awareness and a specific person with
They're
that
go-
expertise.
They'll provide
Right.
the scope of work to us, but in terms of what I believe you're thinking, that would have to be more of a deeper cyber
Okay.
audit in terms of,
right.
look at some penetration testing and some of
Yep.
those pieces. So that's a
Okay.
little different piece than what our internal control audit is.
Okay.
They're looking at the controls around it without necessarily testing, like, what'd you just call it, penetration
Yeah, it's
testing?
penetration testing. Some districts have, district BOCES have gone through that process. You're starting to see more of that.
And they may recommend that we go that route
Correct.
by saying you have potentially weak controls in certain areas.
They're looking at password controls and who has access to what documents and applications and more of a.
And our policies and the people
policies
around them,
Okay.
right?
Like people bringing memory sticks in and plugging them in.
Yep, just put it right into your computer, right? Yeah,
Okay, all right, thanks.
we already adopted that though, right? Here, so, okay, H, energy exemption resolution. This was one of our topics at the workshop. Motion to adopt this resolution. Kevin, second. Marty, any questions about it after the workshop? All in favor? Any opposed? 7-0. Policy first reads. So a good number here. We know the policy committee's working hard now.
Tomorrow morning, 7:30.
Again, right? Okay, 7:30 tomorrow morning, but this is first read, so motion to accept the first reading, approve the first reading. Joyce, second. Judy, questions about any of these first reading? Okay, all in favor? No opposed, 7-0. School-sponsored field trips. Motion to approve the following list of curricular field trips and extracurricular that were attached. Need a motion to approve? Kevin, second. Joyce? Questions?
There was one that was added, and that's included.
It's included now, yes. In that, so. Any other questions? All in favor? Any opposed? 7-0. And K, appointment of central treasurer for extra classroom funds. This was specifically at Jefferson Avenue School. Need a motion to approve. Marty, second.
Second.
Tim? Questions about this? All in favor? Any opposed? 7-0. There we go. Okay, board comments? Sorry, was that out loud? Okay. No?
Just to say that Thursday, Friday, Saturday is the New York State School Boards Association conference. And some of us will be attending some of the days, and it's here in the city for once.
Right.
Some of us will be attending some of the days, some of the times.
Right.
You gonna finish that kind of phrase, or?
I
Okay.
can't be there for the whole thing, but.
Some of us will be presenting.
Yep.
The slides look very awesome, so. Right, and looking forward to it. There's some good presentations. Okay, anything else? Then we are entering into executive session, is that correct? We do not have any plans to do motions afterwards or voting, so we will simply.
Move to go into executive session.
Yeah, got motion by Tim, second. Joyce? I say we're just, when we reconvene, we will not do any voting, we'll simply adjourn, so.
Thank you.
All in favor? Any opposed? 7-0. Thank you, everybody.